stuff. So when Margo sets up here, we're really excited to have her here tonight. I mean, anytime I re-invite somebody to come on tax day, I'm a little nervous. So Margo, we're grateful that you finished your taxes in time.
It's a wrap! Unfortunately, I don't do my own taxes. Otherwise, you would not be seeing me.
But also, you know, in the election last year, we heard so much about this idea or this notion of the glass ceiling and about the inequity between women and men in professional organizations, positions, power of government, but corporations. And fortunately, design is one of the places where women do have the ability to rise to the top. And today there are just, you know, so many women who are really pioneering this area of design, from April Greiman to Lorraine Wild, Louise Sandhouse, Nancy Stolas, Meredith Davis, Denise Crisp Gonzalez, and so the list goes on. But you know what? At the top of that list is someone called Margo Chase. And so when we're able to see a role model for our students, the majority of whom are female, in fact they outnumber now their male counterparts 6-to-1. It's an awesome opportunity to bring her in to speak to you and to show you that there are great female role models in design. Okay? And then also the third reason we're really, really grateful to have you here today is that in general we have this opportunity to be able to just kind of see and hear from someone in a professional organization who's leading the way. And with Margo, it's an opportunity to really kind of hear from somebody who's amazing. And one of the factors that we always now use quantitatively to be able to see somebody's popularity is Google. So, hands up. How many search results do you think come up under Margo Chase? Anyone? 1.5 million search results. All right. So she beats out everybody we've invited here before. And not only that, you only have to type in 3 letters, M-A-R, and Margo's name comes up. So this is how awesome it is to be able to invite her to here today. So please, a big round of applause for Margo.
Thank you very much. That was like the most unusual introduction I've ever gotten about Google search results. But great. So I see that you guys are kind of setting me up perfectly for the presentation I want to give, because there are definitely more women in this audience than men. I have a few downer statistics to share with you, but in general, I think the message will be positive. So I'm talking about the role of women in design, but it's going to be a really personal point of view, because it's really about the women I work with and their opinion and their experience, and some of the men too. And hopefully the end result will be something that will inspire you guys and help you kind of get a picture of what it can be like to work in a professional design firm. So first of all, I want to share with you a little bit about who we are at Chase. So we actually have 5 offices now. Los Angeles and New York are the big ones. I started the business in Los Angeles in 1986. So we've been around for about 30 years, 31 years. The New York office has been around for 6. And we have I think 44 people total between the 2 offices, and we have an office in Chicago, which is an awesome desk in a WeWork space. We have an office in Jakarta, which is similar, and we just started an office in London, in the same idea, person in a WeWork space, which we will be hopefully growing. So the company is getting bigger and more diverse as we speak, and it's got a lot of moving parts, but all of them are people, and most of them are designers. So here's a little bit of the statistics. Overall, our office is 69% women and 31% men. But if you add the dogs, it becomes 55% women, 50% men. very yellow. That's a white background on my screen. I wonder why that's yellow. But so yeah, it's kind of a white, bright, colorful, kind of crazy place to work. And this is introducing you to our dogs. So our dogs are also more female than male. So here's some statistics. So women control 73% of consumer purchasing and $20 trillion of the world's annual consumer spending. And our company is about designing consumer products primarily purchased by women. So that's part of the role of graphic design, I think, these days, is trying to figure out how to make people feel like they have brand affinity, that they want to buy something. And if all of those people are women, then I think women are the best positioned to help design for them. More than half of American women are the breadwinners in their households. But then when you start looking at the numbers, they earn 80 cents for every dollar a man earns. And that's this year statistics. So Sheryl Sandberg wrote a book called Lean In, which if you have not read, I recommend. And she says, while women continue to outpace men in educational achievement, we have ceased making real progress at the top of any industry. And this means that when it comes to making the decisions that most affect our world, women's voices are not heard equally. So to back that up, more than half of emerging graphic design graduates are female. But when you get to the top of the profession, only 11% of creative directors are female. And this used to be 3% until about 6 years ago, this 3% conference started. Because the numbers were 3% female. So things are changing for the positive, which is great. But so where are all the women going? So when you graduate, if 40% of women leave the profession after 2 years, 30% leave before 5 years, and for the next 10 years and onward, only about 30% of the graduates remain in the profession. So that's not a great statistic. And here's an incredibly controversial quote from Milton Glaser. He says, "The reason there are so few female rock star graphic designers is that women get pregnant, have children, go home and take care of their children. And those essential years that men are building their careers and becoming visible are basically denied to women who choose to be at home. Unless something very dramatic happens to the nature of the human experience, it's never going to change." So he got an amazing amount of social media flack for that statement, which I think is appropriate. But Sheryl Sandberg kind of concurs. She says, "We hold ourselves back in ways both big and small by lacking self-confidence, by not raising our hands, and by pulling back when we should be leaning in." So some of this stuff absolutely has nothing to do with raising families or being gone from the profession. It has to do with whether you stand up for yourself, whether you speak up in a meeting, all of those sort of small things that make you people, that put you in a position of power. Jessica Philpott said, "Women make excellent designers." There's no question about that. We're fantastic communicators, we're multitaskers, and these are all skills that undeniably make for a good problem-solving designer. And so the next work that I'm going to show you is introduced by people from my office, men and women, and I've asked them to sort of put some of their experiences into words for you. So this is Paula Hansen-Newgrim. She's a creative director in the Los Angeles office. So she says, "In my own experience, being a female has not hindered my career. I think it comes down to knowing when to take advantage of opportunities and setting a high goal for yourself from the outset of your career, knowing your own value and not settling." And I would say, knowing Paula, that's absolutely true about her. She is like opinionated, she's outspoken, she's really smart, she is very organized. She has like everything it takes to like lead a creative team, and she does an amazing job at it. So this is one of the projects that you guys may recognize that Paula's been very involved in developing the creative elements. So when I think we started working with Califia in about 2010, they came to us and they were a super small company. The founder, Greg Steltenpole, had started Adwala juices and sold it to, I think, Pepsi or Coke or someone, and so he had a lot of money. And he's had an idea that he really wanted to do healthy products that were sourced in California and that were, genuinely pure ingredients. And so it was a great concept. He's a real risk-taking entrepreneur, really smart guy. really interesting to work with. And so the first thing we did was a kind of a brand workshop with him. And you can see some of the people there. Actually, Paul is in that picture. The workshops are really important. They're kind of our way of working with the sort of brain trust of the companies to understand what they have in mind and then figure out what their brand needs to be, like what the brand voice should be, and who they think the company will turn into when it becomes something. So this is also about looking at who your market's going to be, like who are you going to sell to. He was smart because he knew that he was going to launch in Whole Foods, but he really wanted the brand to live beyond just the natural foods market. He wanted it to be something that was accessible to everybody. So going in, we knew that. We knew it wasn't just going to be niche. So we wanted to make something that looked wholesome and healthy, but could still work on a shelf in any, major grocery store. So this is the final positioning. We did a lot of work around identifying positioning for Greg. And this authentic nostalgic handmade was really the kind of aesthetic bucket and sort of conceptual bucket that he wanted the Calthea brand to play. And so then we got into logo design, the fun part. And the Calthea name was something he came with. And he wasn't sure he wanted it, and everybody calls it Califia too, so that was one of the big reasons he wasn't sure he would not pronounce it. In the end, I think it doesn't really matter. The Califia goddess is actually a kind of an Amazon goddess. She's the source of the name of the state, California. So really appropriate for a company that wanted to have all of their products sourced locally. And she's kind of represents, abundance and, like fertility. So a very appropriate idea conceptually for this company. So we jumped in and started working on brand identity, and that logo in the upper left is what he started with. So I think some in-house designer at one of the produce companies came up with that one. So it was a really interesting project for us too, to try to create a goddess who could be representative of the concept and the sort of idea without being too specific. Like, so, someone who people can look at and go, oh, I don't like her, or I do like her. So we wanted her to be suggestive of ethnicity, but not recognizable. So it was a really interesting challenge in terms of being able to kind of execute a portrait. And then also make it simple enough that it can be reduced, and, sort of printing on the packaging and things isn't the best. So it needed to be something that could be reproduced really clearly, even very tiny and under sort of bad circumstances. Then we got to start working on the packaging. And so his first product is almond milk, and we did a competitive set. It's possible to get rid of the yellow, I think. I know I'm asking a lot.
Try to check on the cord. Sometimes it's the connection.
It looks really nice on my I wonder if it's a color thing in the packaging. Let's try something real quick. All right, we're not going to calibrate right now. So you guys are just going to have to live with it. Sorry. So we looked at the grocery store, and the category, it's not often that we get a competitive set that's this consistent, but every almond milk, pretty much without question, was in blue and in a carton. So we kind of looked at that and we went, wow, kind of big opportunity there to do something different. But any of you who've worked with clients, especially startups who are, they're taking big risks, they got a lot of money on the line, they're competing with a lot of really big companies with a lot more money than they have, are often kind of conservative, and Greg, to his credit, was not. So one of the things that you could conclude from looking at this is that almond milk has to be blue, and it has to be in a carton, because that's what consumers understand almond milk to look like. And we've definitely heard that in lots of presentations that we've done with other clients, but he was like, I absolutely don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to look like the rest of the crowd. So that was a huge opportunity and like a great place to start for us. So then we started looking at what, do you want to look like? And he was intentionally formulating his almond milk to taste as much like milk as possible. So we said, why don't we go to Dairy Hughes, and why don't we go to like this vintage heritage idea that we were all kind of in love with around the idea of the brand. Like, let's use that also for the packaging, and so we came up with this idea to come up with a container that kind of was reminiscent of a vintage milk bottle. So it's a PET structure plastic, but it's wrapped, it's shrunk in a opaque white, and it needs to be opaque in order to keep the almond milk from having UV damage from the sunlight. So we knew it needed to be opaque, and so obviously white or warm white seemed like the right solution. And so then we went into design, and this is just a quick overview of many design directions that we approached. Here's a few. This is the group that actually was selected out of the first round of design. And then this is the product as it exists. And it's not quite the same on shelf these days. The Pure had to be removed for legal reasons after about 2 years in market. And so now if you look at them, they have like little elements there where the Pure is, which made me sad. It's like Pure blood. But he then line extended into iced coffee, which is delicious, and I encourage you to try it if you haven't already. And then we do seasonal work for them also. So this is the cold brewed pumpkin spice that's done for seasonal Christmas. And then line extended into lemonades and limeades. And again, you can see really consistent using the same iconic shape and the same position for the logo on every package. So really establishing a brand identity for him through kind of iconic form, but then being able to vary the graphic language in order to differentiate the product. And then we even had some fun with these agua frescas, which are again really delicious, watermelon and strawberry. They're amazing. And then being able to kind of play around with the illustration language and like create a whole vocabulary of imagery that he also uses online. And then the other fun thing about working with smaller companies is that as a design firm, you get to do a lot of things beyond the package. So we designed a website for them. We did their trade show booth. They do the Natural Food Show every year that takes place down in Anaheim. So you can see this is the 3D rendering we did, and then the execution was actually really pretty bang on. So this is introducing Yvonne. Her full name is brand to me. Design firms have a lot of women in high places compared to other industries. Therefore, I don't feel any prejudice or discrimination as a young woman in the field. Rather, I feel that I have more of an opportunity to be in their position one day. So Yvonne is our lead designer on the Gain brand. This is a Procter & Gamble project. And this is one of the very first big brand assignments that we took at Chase Design Group. And I have to tell you, I was incredibly hesitant to take on like giant corporate, like the little monolith, because I thought, oh my God, you know, well, look what they do. They make that stuff on the left. Like, how are you ever going to make that look better? It's going to be it's going to be a nightmare. And it was a really slow process. It took 4 years to get to that. From that to that, 4 years. So big companies work very slow. But they also pay really well. So there's compensation for everything. And in the end, I think we were really proud, and it looks a lot better when it's not that yellow. And then we got to line extend. So this brand was all about scent. So it became a really, and still is, a really fun brand to work with because it's very expressive and kind of emotional. And we've been able to create kind of a vocabulary, illustration styles that evoke that sort of sensorial experience. There's a lot of products in the line now under the Gain brand. So fabric softeners that have like a very tactile sort of matte finish on them, dish soap, and a brand new thing we just did called Fireworks, which are this stuff you add into your dryer and it like makes your clothes smell really well. Strong. Introducing Clark Goolsby, who is the Vice President and Creative Director of CDG New York. And I'm surrounded by successful women. My wife is successful. She's a doctor. The women in my family are successful. I work for a successful women designer, and almost all of my clients are women. I truly believe greatness cannot be ignored. I can't imagine judging someone on anything but their abilities. If you are great at what you do, someone will take notice. So Clark was really instrumental in the redesign of this Mr. Clean And probably was the quickest redesign we've ever done through Procter & Gamble. So I told you Gay took 4 years. This took 6 months, which was like, I mean, that's like light speed in the corporate world. Basically because the brand was kind of struggling and the company didn't really know what to do with it, and they were actually thinking of selling it, divesting themselves of the Mr. Clean brand. So anything, they were pretty much open to anything because, you know, it was hard to do anything to hurt what wasn't doing too well. And the challenge really was, you could see on the left that the Mr. Clean icon, the guy, had gotten a little marginalized and he'd kind of gotten buried on his own path. And they weren't really using him as a, you know, they weren't leveraging him at all. And we did some research, and along with the advertising agency, we overnet, and there is a Mr. Clean Facebook page. And when you go to the Mr. Clean Facebook page, there are posts by women that say, "Oh my God, you're the sexiest guy I've ever seen." You know, like crazy stuff. So all of a sudden we were like, hey, maybe there's something here, like maybe we should make a bigger deal out of this guy, like if all these ladies like him, and that's our audience, right? So the idea then was to make him much more prominent on the pack, and to make the packaging itself much more simple and much more impactful. So get rid of all the glows and the rays and the like signifiers of clean and the tile floors and all the crap that was on the packaging before, and just make it super clean and graphic. So it's about color, it's about type, and it's about Mr. Clean, and he's big. And you can see the color and the lineup, very, very graphic. When you go into the store now and see this stuff on shelf, it really jumps out because it's just a big canvas of color, very simple. And the other fun part is we get to do brand guides for all of these brands that we work on. The P&G work that we do is really interesting because they really value design at that corporation, and so the design firms are really the custodians of the brand image. So it's our job as designers to create the logo, create the brand rules, create the equity that the brand stands for, come up with the language, and then that gets given out to everyone else, including advertising agencies, the online firms, the digital, the in-store thing. So it's a big responsibility, but it's also, I think, in the best interest of the brand because designers are much better at managing those things and being consistent than advertising agencies, creative directors. Many of you guys are going to advertising, don't you? And then the other thing that's really cool is Clark is a really good copywriter. And so normally this work would be done by the advertising agency, but because we were so close to the brand, and because Clark's smart, a lot of the work, the writing that he did actually ends up in the advertising for this brand. So when it comes to clean, there's only one Mr. So Melinda says, my mother lived in an era where she was expected to move from her parents directly into a house with my father and didn't get the opportunity to be an independent young woman. Because of that experience, she instilled in me an independent spirit and a strong work ethic. I would never have gotten where I am without her support and guidance. And Melinda is account manager for many brands, including Quaker, which I can't show you because it isn't finished, but we just finished our redesign of California Kitchen. And Melinda managed all of that. So up above is what it looked like before, and then down below is the redesign. And we just tried to simplify it and give it a little bit more of a kind of culinary position and make the pizza kind of more important. So the pizza before was a little three-quarter view, kind of distant, in this weird yellow field that wasn't very appetizing. But yellow is their brand color, a really strong connection. So we had to figure out a way of keeping the yellow so that it's findable on shelf because everybody really, color matches when they're looking for CK on the yellow, but like get it away from the food. And so we use the backgrounds as a way to differentiate between the core line, which is on the really dark wood, limited edition, which is on the medium, and then their gluten-free and organic, which are against white. So there's a big long lineup, many flavors under each category, including also flatbreads. And then also some, design of really kind of thinking about how the back can relate. So the whole yellow band kind of wraps around. It's all three-dimensional, design. So Michelle Hoffman is account director for the New York office. So she manages all of the client relationships through the New York office. So that's a really big job. As a woman, I feel very fortunate to have landed in a career in design I truly believe it is an industry where diversity thrives and success is gender agnostic. Throughout my career, I have worked for and beside incredibly talented, smart, and prosperous women. So to me, a role in design has always looked like boundless opportunity. So Michelle has been instrumental in this brand, redesigning Swiffer, which is another Procter & Gamble brand. So that's what it looked like before. And the new logo, this just launched a year and a half ago. A lot more fun. And then the biggest part of the Swiffer brand was really reconfiguring the packaging, because they have in-store displays where all of these tools kind of hang on racks. And before they were kind of hanging, and the pack was like sort of this weird little cardboard piece that maybe didn't hang straight. So it wasn't just rebranding, it was also kind of re-envisioning the structure of the packaging and how the whole display system would work in store. And then also trying to figure out a way to consistently color code. So using green for sweeper, but then figuring out within the green how to differentiate between the different products. So it's a much more complex, design problem than it seems on the surface. And then the fun part of all the brands we work on are creating additional communication that can be used on and off the pack. So giving assets for use on the Facebook page, in social media, in advertising, creating a little guidebooks for how you use things. These are some visualizations for when we do presentations for off-pack. We usually visualize them. Unfortunately, there was never this awesome billboard in New York, but someday. So that was yeah. So we have some fun. So Kelly is an account director. In my 25-year career, I had only worked with male creative directors until a year ago. And there's a huge difference. I'm an outspoken female, and that seems to cause friction in a male-run studio. Now that I'm in a female-run studio, I feel like I'm home, and I'm still outspoken. She is. And she is in charge of our relationship with Nestle. And again, an incredibly smart and organized person, and really the clients really love her. So we just did this last summer, which is this limited edition for Cosme, which is a really interesting. So it was 5 different bloggers online that we made connections with who had all sort of summer themes, and then we were able to sort of work with them to create illustrations that kind of evoked the things that they were, kind of known for. And then each package on the back kind of introduces the blogger, has their information, connections to their site and what they do. So Becca, for instance, is into camping, and so she has recipes for what to do with Coffee Mate when you take it camping and how to pack it and all of that stuff. So each of the different illustrations has kind of a story behind it and a personality. So it was a really fun way of getting kind of a venerable, kind of boring brand to have a little bit more connection to a younger market, and also make some really cool illustrations. John Ariazza, a guy, he's a guy. I'm one of only a few male designers at Chase in Los Angeles. I personally do not feel I'm at a disadvantage compared to my female peers, nor do I feel that I have an advantage over them. I recognize their talent and I'm proud to work with them. Every member of our team brings a unique skill to the table and has helped with our success as a studio. And John was really involved in redesigning this brand, Zen Monkey, which is kind of a yogurt and oats breakfast for kids. So you can see the before and after. And this guy the guy that started this company had a real challenge because everybody thought that was sour cream. And it had this really cool name and like kind of a great idea and a really good product, but a lot of competition from really big people. And so he had to do something that would be kind of unique and not look like yogurt and really stand out. So the idea of this kind of use of strong color gradients and illustration was kind of the way to make it still feel like it can translate from kids into adults without really, so adults don't feel embarrassed carrying it around at the meeting because it's great, but definitely trying to aim it at a younger audience. So this is an array. I think it's hard to feel like your voice matters when you're often the other. I was fortunate enough to find mentors and colleagues who listened and supported me early on in my career. Find people that see your worth and don't doubt what you bring to the table. So this is Pressed by Kind, which is new packaging, just launched about 6 months ago, I think. So this challenge was Kind, as you probably know, does bars, and they're known for having transparent packaging where you can actually see the bar. So this is actually kind of it's like a slurry of fruit and vegetables that's then kind of compressed, so it doesn't look that good. So it was, how do we make packaging for a company that's known for transparency and make it still appealing, even though it's opaque? So the idea was to kind of take a cue from fruit juice and beverages and like actually use these beautiful color washes and that sort of suggest the fruit flavors and wrap the packaging in that. And so you can see it's really type driven. They allowed us to not do the typical show the picture of the fruit on the front of the package, which is awesome. So this has gotten a ton of press, and it really stands out on shelf. You guys might have seen it in stores. And if you haven't, the stuff is great. It's really, really tasty. So Janet Levinson is Director of Administration, which means that she is in charge of like all our human resources and all of the hiring and firing of people and recruitment. And she started out as a designer, and I think that actually says a lot about the kind of people that work at Chase. I'm always looking for people that are creative, regardless of whether you're actually an on-the-board designer. I want someone in my company who is creative brain-wise and can understand what creative people do. And Janet really does. She says, I believe that consistent and lasting talent, high standards, and drive bring acknowledgement and recognition. The proof is in the quality of the work, not in the sex of the person. Better Together is, these are brownies that were a really, really small husband and wife company started these, and they're now getting a lot more distribution because of the repackaging that we did. And you can see the fun colors again and illustrations. This was done in New York, and a really compelling logo. And then they did a lot of photography to kind of support this and help the client. So that's one of the things that we do that's kind of going beyond just making beautiful packages, giving our clients sort of imagery to work with that they can use to support and promote their products. So these monochromatic photos were done for the clients so they can put them up on Facebook and Instagram and like use them as ads and promote. Because they had a very small budget, so they're not doing any kind of publication advertising or anything like that. It all has to be social media. So images that are really memorable and get shared are really helpful. So Joanna Quiet she's a production manager, which means she's in charge of the actual, printing, the mechanicals, and all the details and the sort of technical aspect. My career has been an exciting and fulfilling journey. I naturally gravitated towards the packaging design industry. By learning and observing all of the knowledge that crosses my path, I continue to grow and evolve as a person who specializes in packaging production. And she does this with 2 children. So she's a mom. And this is some work we did a couple years ago for another woman, Kat Von D, licensing her LA Ink work through Discovery Network. So a licensing guide, for those of you guys who don't know it, is actually taking artwork and then designing ways that it can be used to put so it's apparel, accessories, things like that. So Kat's now got a program where she's making clothing with some of her tattoos and things on it. Unfortunately, all the artwork that she makes is on people's skin, so we ended up having to redraw and translate a lot of it into things that could be used on t-shirts, and it was really fun. So we used a lot of different, she has a whole team or a crew of tattoo artists, all of whom do different styles. So the guide actually kind of represents all the different people. This one was Corey Miller. So Paula again, I see many female friends working hard, but not pushing to move ahead in their careers. Many seem to have a high tolerance for work situations that don't nurture growth and end up settling or getting stuck. One of the things that I feel really strongly about at Chase is collaboration. And in 2013, we did this collaborative design project, which is a box of 12 days of chocolate. So we had 12 designers each doing one of the pieces of chocolate, and then a 13th designer doing the box, and somebody else doing the insert. So everyone got a chance to contribute. And it turned out to be a really fun project that got a lot of press. We also worked with an amazing printer in Los Angeles who wanted to show off their ability to do foil stamping and blind embossing and all the tricks. So the printing on this stuff is over the top. So a lot of foil stamping, a lot of like structural design, which Joanna was involved in. and each of the designers did their own writing for the inside too. So there's a little story about the number. So we sort of put all the numbers in a hat, and everybody drew a number, and then they had to kind of come up with something. And then we tried to write a poem that had, made sense and sort of went to the song, which I can't remember all the stanzas now, but. Dave Carlino is an art director at Chase in LA. Every company I've worked at since 2002 has been dominated by women, both on the design and the client side. I think Beyonce's Run the World should come with an asterisk at the end of the title. The qualifying statement would read, who run the design world? Girls. So our last thing is we do some work still with the CW. This is a relationship I've had since I started in design almost 30 years ago. And the creative director at CW is still the same guy. So we've had a long relationship from kind of Buffy the Vampire Slayer through to more recent vampires. So including Angel and some witches and some more witches and some other wicked women. And this is really fun because the designers at Chase are all really good at lettering because they, because I make them be good at lettering. And so it's fun when we get these assignments because everybody gets a chance to kind of blow off some steam and do a bunch of logos and see them on television. So this is the campaign for the launch season of the Vampire Diaries. And some other work that we did, these were holy cards that featured each of the different vampires, and then these were used again in social media. We did the logo for the spin-off called The Originals, which was about the other family of vampires. And these are not vampires. She's not a vampire either. Jane the Virgin is a great show. And again, we had a lot of fun with the candles. And then most recently and sadly, the last season of Vampire Diaries, season 8, we did the icon for it, the sort of Infinity Ouroboros, Vampires Are Forever. And then this was actually a design for the top of a coffin for the last season. Oops. I have always felt lucky to be who I am. I love design. I've never considered being a woman to be a disadvantage. Success has come from surrounding myself with talented people, both men and women, who are willing to work as hard as I do.
Ask questions. Okay. It's expected and anticipated. It's in every interview there's going to be that moment where they say, "Do you have any questions for us?" You never want to be sitting there saying, So, practice. Let's have some questions, please, for Margo. Jen.
So when you had the very first brand with the pure, and then you said you couldn't use it for copyright issue, I'm just curious.
It's not copyright, it's illegal, actually.
Sorry.
Yeah, but it's a good question.
Yeah.
And it's something that none of us knew, and in fact, it was a regulation that changed, which happens in the packaging industry a lot. I think the FDA had redefined what pure meant, and almond milks actually got water, so it is pure, so they couldn't say sad.
You're back.
Was there any encumbrance that you felt as in your personal career that you had to break through?
Well, I think to be honest, the hardest thing for me is to keep my mouth shut in meetings. I've had a few incidents where clients had to call someone else in my office and say, "Could you ask her not to do that next time? Because otherwise we're not going to be able to work with you." Because I tell people what I think. And so that's kind of the opposite of the problems that some women have, I think. But it's a problem nonetheless. So you're walking this little line, right, between saying what you think and doing it in a way that's diplomatic and constructive and doesn't offend people. And sometimes, I get in conversations at big companies especially, and it's just they're stupid, and you just have to hold your tongue. So yeah.
What's your screening process for choosing brands? Do you look at the product that you're going to be redesigning and actually, for example, the kind where you buy? Did you taste it before you chose to like redesign for them so you could really be?
Well, Kind, no, because we knew who they were as a brand, and I mean, I think they're an amazing company, so that one was easy. And Calafia was easy too. Some of the bigger brands are more difficult because, I don't necessarily get behind some of the things that they're doing, so it's a little harder. Like, we just did a project for 7-Up, and that one's a little bit more of a question to me because it's essentially sugar water. And Pepsi's doing the best they can. Pepsi owns the brand in North America. I mean, in everywhere else but North America. So the work that we did wasn't here, it was everywhere else in Europe. And it was for a formulation where they're trying to reduce the sugar. So they're taking some of the sugar out, putting in a sugar substitute to try to make it a little better for you. So it's like the companies are moving step by step in the direction of trying to be healthy. But yeah, we definitely had conversations in-house about that. Like, should we do this? Like, do we want to be soda designers? Like, what does that say about us? And we've actually turned down work for cigarettes and other things like, even vaping, we've had a few projects, and I just think the whole category is not something I support. So, yeah, we do make choices. Yeah.
So in the case of Gain or some of these others where they end up having a line expansion, how involved is your group in creating the expansion? I mean, do you say, you notice that you have these different varieties, this is how we would position it? I mean, how does this competition
well, that's a really good question, and yeah, that's one of the things that happens when you work with the really big brands is they make decisions that sort of sometimes don't make any sense from a design standpoint. They'll launch a product based on some R&D formulation they can do.
Okay.
Like, we're on round 3 of It Smells Better. Like, it's got more scent. Like, so like 3 years ago we launched something with more scent, then 2 years ago we launched another one that was even more scent, and now it's like, wow, it's even more scent. Like, so what do you say? Yeah, it's like, well, what else does it do? Like, can it do something else? Like, does it clean better? Like, so, yeah, and we get a lot of, we get involved actually in those conversations now more than we did when we first started working with them, because when we first started working with P&G, they really thought design firms were just design firms. That's all we did was design the package, like give them brand assets, end of discussion. But they've come to learn that we're much more interested in the strategy and those kinds of questions. Like, I really want the product offering to make sense from a consumer standpoint. Like, I want the consumer to be able to walk up to the shelf and say, oh yeah, I want that because it does this, and like sometimes the perspective and the brief you get is just like, you're like, no one's gonna understand this. They're not gonna, it doesn't make any sense. So I love being involved in that, like, discussion of the architecture, launching a new product. Like, once it's, can we like lead and feed? Can you guys get rid of that one now, and can we do something new in that space? Those kinds of conversations. And we don't always get, I mean, sometimes we just have to design what they're making. And sadly, sometimes we design things that then never see the light of day because they decide the business proposition isn't right, it's not going to make them enough money. We've designed a few products for Nestle that are work that I just love, and then they just never launched it because they couldn't get enough. It didn't pass whatever, marginal projections they needed. So sad, but that happens. Yeah.
So you do a lot of consulting to help different brands stand out. What do you think makes your firm stand out amongst other design firms, and how does that, do you think, contribute to your success?
I hate that question. That one's so hard because I think we all good designers are the same, right? Like, we all say, yeah, our work is great. I mean, I would say that, I would give you that answer, yeah, because our work is great, right? It is. We're smart, but so is everybody else. So that's a really hard one to answer. And to be honest, I think one of the reasons that we're successful is the fact that we do the things that you have to do. Like, we do great work and we're really smart, but we also are very, I think, supportive of clients. Like, we have a pretty big accounting group, and you met some of them, and their job is really to, make our clients' lives easier. And when we work with really big companies, their lives are crazy because they have initiatives and they have goals, they have targets that they're given for, and they'll lose their job if they don't reach those goals. And I think understanding where their requests are coming from, even though we think sometimes they're stupid or crazy or like make no sense from a design standpoint, it's like being able to kind of get in their chair and like see the world from their side. And that's not actually my strong point, that's my partner Chris Lowry's strong point. So as I said in the end, like one of my superpowers is that I'm good at hiring really good people.
This is kind of a broad question, but what advice would you give a new designer right out of college?
I would advise you to try as many different types of design work as possible, like work for different people, and don't get stuck. Because it's hard to figure out what you want to do as a designer until you actually do it. I think being in school gives you this maybe not quite accurate idea of what practice is like. And a firm like mine might not be where you would like to be in the end. You know, it could be in a really small design, like a little 1 or 2 man shop where you get to do tons of different stuff. We're now to the stage where most of my designers get to do a variety of things, but it's not as much as it was when we were smaller. So size makes a difference in terms of your job experience, and also, of course, who you're working with. Whether you're working on packaging and things in print, or whether you're doing books or web design, video. It's like there's so many opportunities now, and it's hard, I think, to know exactly what will resonate until you try things. Get internships, different places. Yeah.
How do you know when someone that's applying for a job is going to work out?
They don't always. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing I love about internships, actually. And we've hired quite a few of our interns. We're about to hire another one. So, because we get a chance to work with them, and we get to see, what their skills are like, and what their personalities like, if they're going to fit in with the office, and they get to see the same thing. So, I really like that. And as trying to hire people with more experience who are in the work field already is a hard, conversation, because they're leaving another job to come work for us, and so that to me is a big commitment that we're making to somebody. And so we try to make it work as much as possible, but we're also trying to be really cautious about hiring people and making sure that they're going to fit based on as many interviews. And I mean, sometimes we'll give them a project to do, like nights and weekends, like if they're working and they have another job, so we can see what kind of work we're going to get from them. Make sure that we did that with Dave Crowley. That was one of the slides. He was working for a design firm in New York and wanted to move to California. And I was like, well, let's give him a project. So we were working on some Nestle work at the time, and so we had him do some design work for one of the rounds of Nestle and we paid him. And the work was great. The client loved it, and we were like, all right, you're hired. So that part was easy.
How long are your internships?
6 months.
You designed all the build, like the website and the trade show setup. What are some of the other different types of work, and the difference between working for a small company and a corporate company? The type of work you do.
Yeah. Well, so when we were smaller, it doesn't. We have to do maybe more kinds of work now that we're bigger. It's just that as an individual designer, you might not have that experience yourself. So as a company, we're still in the broad spectrum. It's just that you, as a single person, might not get a chance to do all the different things that we do as a company. But for smaller companies like Califia, when they hire a design firm, they expect that to cover like all of the things that design includes in their world, which includes marketing really. So it's like designing things that work online for them. So it's the website. It's like helping them figure out what to do with social media. It's the trade show booth. It's advertising. It's promotional mailers. It's like whatever falls into that bucket. But when you work for a bigger company like P&G, those kinds of things go to other companies. So that's why we do these brand guides, because we want the brand sort of equity to be clear, but we're not the company making the trade show booth, and we're not the company making the website. So the people doing the website are using our brands and our assets, and hopefully they're getting the green right. But it's not us doing it.
What do you do if a client wants something that, in your opinion, is bad design?
Well, we try not to give them anything that's bad design, so they can't pick it, first of all.
Yeah.
But, because they have radar for the worst thing, whatever the worst one is, that's what they go for. Yeah, well, and sometimes they come to us with requests we scratch our heads trying to figure out how to make it good. And we don't always succeed. I mean, I'm showing you the good stuff. Sure. I don't put things that I'm not proud of up there, but you know, they happen. Yeah.
When a client chooses that worst one out of the bunch, can you tell like what? Do you sometimes just have to like stick with it and just try to make it the best version of it? Or?
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, I usually try to figure out why. I mean, to me, that's the most powerful question in a meeting that you can ask is why that one? Like, what is it about that one that you like, and what is it that you think is going to work? And so then once I figure out what they want, then sometimes we can fix it, and usually we can fix it. Because, you know, they'll say, oh, I think this has the most shelf impact, and you're like, oh, okay, great, we can fix that. We can make this better design more impactful. So, you know, it's that kind of conversation about what is it that you see here that makes this work for you, and then let's see if we can make it work for us too.
So I have a question for you. Dan Brown is about to release his next new bestseller. His publisher ran a competition, soliciting designs for that front cover, and but unpaid. And Jessica helped me that she wrote a long, scathing report, you know, feedback on that, just commentary on
Yeah.
that. You know, that it's designers need to be paid, we need to be recognized. But, you know, of course, that's difficult starting out for religious
Yeah.
to be able to have the opportunity to get their work out there, their name out there. So what advice or recommendations, where do you stand?
Yeah, that's a really hard question to answer because I think it's a case-by-case, you know, conversation. Like the Dan Brown example, I think is a really interesting one because if I were a starting out designer and I had that opportunity, I would do it unpaid because if you get to do the Dan Brown cover, like that's your career. I mean, that's your stepping stone into something awesome, right? That's visibility that you can get any other way. So I don't know that I would say no to that. It would be nice if you would, you know, offer to pay, but I think a competition like that maybe gives a lot of designers who, you know, a firm like myself would never pitch against, would never do something like that, you know. So if you're a starting right out of school designer and you're willing to do it, do the work for free, I mean, that's an opportunity that you know you might not get, and you're not going to be competing against the people, a lot of people who want to be paid. So go for it. But like at a higher level, we get a lot of RFPs. And I mean, the good thing about most RFPs we get is that they're paid. I mean, we're pitching against other agencies and they're, you know, it's serious work that they're asking for. And it takes us, you know, weeks, months of work to, you know, do whatever to answer the RFP. So in that case, it needs to be paid, and I think that's something most corporations do and expect to do. We haven't gotten the request for work that was unpaid from let me amend that. We did from a very small startup company. We told them that that wasn't how that work should work, and then they came up with some money.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
How many students, by the way, know what an RFP is?
Oh, it's a request for proposal. So it's say a company like, so we just started working with Quaker last year, and we're redesigning the Quaker Man and all of the entire line of Quaker products. So it's a giant project. And so the carrot is big. And so when they send out an RFP, what they're saying is, we want to see your work. How would you solve this problem? And the carrot is the entire responsibility for the Quaker brand for the next whatever. You know, so the upside's huge. And so the amount that they're paying is not great comparatively, but it's way worth the risk. And it was probably about 3 weeks of work for us to answer what they asked for, which was really just to take a look at sort of this idea or the visual identity for the brand and sort of talk about where we thought it had gone wrong and what needed to happen instead. And you do that as an agency without a lot of background information, so you're kind of coming at it cold. So it's almost like a consumer, and that's pretty cool because, you know, you're able to look at like, well, what's wrong with this guy? How come he's fat? He's kind of old, like, but there's like a bunch of equity because, I mean, he's kind of a superstar from, you know, I remember from when I was a kid, and, you know, my dad was like, oh my God, you're going to redesign the Quaker Man? Like, don't mess him up. So, you know, you have to respect, he's an icon, right? So kind of like Mr. Queen, kind of figure out what's good about him and, you know, what can be upgraded. And
And do you get to know how many other companies are concurrently bidding?
Sometimes they'll tell you, like in the Quaker example, yeah, we knew we were pitching. Well, so it went from a big group of maybe 15 agencies where we didn't have to do any work, we just had to show up and present ourselves and do our capabilities. And then it got narrowed, I think, to 3 who actually got paid to do work. And then based on that, we were selected.
And then do you know the names of the other companies?
Sometimes, yeah. In this case, we did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they have you all show up on the same day?
No, they didn't do
Yeah.
that to us. That was nice of them.
So it's
That's
just word,
happened.
so it's just word of mouth in the industry?
Yeah, that's happened, and it's, yeah, like we have friends. Exactly.
All right, we have time for one more question. Make it a good one. Come on. Come on, one more question. All right.
All right,
well,
no more questions.
Thank you, Margo, very, very much indeed.
Yeah, thank you.
Um,